Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Divorced Woman's Guide podcast. I am so happy that you've decided to tune in today because I am here with Riana Milne. Hello, Riana. How are you?
Hi, Wendy. How are you? Thanks for
I'm
having me. Hi,
Thank
everybody.
you. Thank you for being here. I'm so excited
Sure.
to chat with you today. And everybody listening, Riana and I are going to be talking about what an emotionally healthy, evolved, and conscious relationship looks like. So, before we dive into our conversation today, I want to share a little bit more about you with our audience. So, Riana is a certified global life and trauma recovery coach, a certified clinical trauma and addictions professional, a certified mindfulness coach, and the #1 best-selling author. She's also a #1 best-selling author. The host of her podcast is called Lessons in Life and Love, an educational speaker and licensed mental health counselor for over 21 years, and she lives in Palm Beach County, Florida. She was also a life and dating coach for the docu-series Radical Dating, Finding Lasting Love Over 40, and she's proud to say that her client is now happily married. Riana specializes in helping those who have had past childhood or love relationship trauma to heal, transform, and thrive, leading them to create the life they desire and to have the love they deserve. She offers coaching programs for both straight and LGBTQ singles and couples globally for ages 16 through 76. And Riana's #1 bestseller, Love Beyond Your Dreams, Break Free from Toxic Relationships to Have the Love You Deserve, and Live Beyond Your Dreams, From Fear and Doubt to Personal Power, Purpose, and Success, addresses life difficult transitions, personal transformation, the mindset for success, and having loving, conscious relationships with yourself and others. So, Riana, oh my goodness, you have got quite the bio, quite the background,
Thanks.
and clearly you didn't just get here by accident. So, I would love for you to share your story with our listeners. How did you come into this work and what keeps you inspired every day?
Okay. Well, yes, it's a long story, but I'll go back to 16 when I became really into mindset work and spirituality. I lost my best friend, unfortunately, to a drunk driver. And that started my journey studying the masters like Tony Robbins, Deepak Chopra, Marianne Williams, Wayne
Mm-hmm.
Dwyer, The Course of
Yeah.
Miracles. And then my last year at Penn State, when I went off for broadcast communications, my best friend was murdered by her boyfriend. So I had another loss, and this one was around love trauma. So, in giving back through my careers, I wanted to give back to Michael and Corinne. That's the first reason I got into it. And then personally, I got into a toxic relationship with the man I dated at Penn State. I did not know he was toxic. I didn't know the signs of toxicity. You know, you have romance, you learn, especially in America, Sleeping Beauty. You kiss a handsome prince, you go off and you live happily ever after because of chemistry. Well,
Right.
that's the worst way you can fall in love. So I made that mistake, and I had amazing two daughters. So thank God for that, coming from that relationship. But unfortunately, he was a sociopath that did rip off my family for $200,000 and never paid it back, which set my life in a pretty difficult journey of being. I left him when my girls were 3 and 4. I decided I could do better on my own, and opened up a model and talent agency that within 6 months went to an international award-winning school, and I put people all over the map in the talent business. But you know, it was like a hard 16 years to pay my mother back, and then he went after me for child support and got it. So, I mean, it was one thing after another, but thank God the mindset for success, no matter what my ex tried to do to make my life miserable and bring me down, my mindset was my success is my best revenge. So I've always enjoyed my work. I love to be creative and help people reach their dreams and their goals. So I was doing that in the talent business. And then I went back to school for a triple master's and applied clinical and counseling psychology when I was 37, and graduated summa cum laude with honors. And what I teach now, none of this was taught in my master's program. I had another marriage, and unfortunately, this one was a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. So everything I saw and the community saw, and him as a principal in his school, everyone loved and adored him, great personality, fun. We traveled the world, very romantic, but he had an entire secret life.
Mm.
So I annulled that marriage. I stood up for myself in the court. He got caught with porn on his computer. That was part of his secret life. And the ironic part of that story is his superintendent introduced us. So, geez, you think, great, an introduction, a school principal. This is a great match. I was working in schools at the time with kids in trauma. So it seemed to everyone this was like the greatest match. So not only did that devastate my plans for retirement and who I thought he was, it was just, the shock, PTSD type shock of, oh my God, how did I not see this? So there's something that is called childhood trauma. And like I said, I didn't learn about it in school. And I had 7 psychotherapist friends. I talked to all of them who knew him and me as us as a couple. It's like you two are the perfect couple. Where'd this come from? Everyone was surprised, but that didn't help heal me. So I had to do my own work, my own research, and my healing. And after 2 years of deeper research and over 350 sources, I was learning as I was going along. I'm like, oh my God, this is so fascinating. I have to write a book. So Love Beyond Your Dreams ended up to be 400 pages. It's a #1 bestseller on Amazon, and there's several categories. And I had more information to tell. So then I created my notebooks, one for singles, one for couples, and they're 150 pages in my coaching programs. And I discovered, what it was, how to heal, how to move on, what feeds this, what causes the toxic behavior. So I was so fascinated, and I started using it within my coaching practices and working with students. And I was working with drug and alcohol rehab patients, even from the prison system. All those ladies certainly had trauma in their life. Working in a hospital system with kids 5 through 19. They were there because they had trauma in their life, and it kept showing up. It just was like always presenting to me. So then I created the childhood trauma checklist, which is the top 10 traumas that 90% of people have at least 1 to 3 of.
Yeah, I find that so fascinating. And this keeps coming up quite a bit in conversations I've had with other colleagues. And, and I know that this is your specialization. Clearly you've spent your lifetime so far researching this and really educating people. So could you talk a little bit more about that childhood trauma element, right? How do you identify it, and how does it hold people back from truly having the life and the love that they dream of having?
Right. Well, without this information, people read a few self-help books after divorce and like, okay, I got it now. I'm going to choose differently. And then they end up with another toxic partner.
Right.
And then another one. Usually by the third one, that's when they start turning to me for coaching. It's like, I don't get it. And I was in their shoes. It's like, you don't know what you don't know. And it's the most frustrating, feeling that you could have. Like, what am I doing wrong? I'm a great lady. I'm a wonderful mother. I'm also an interfaith minister. I'm a fabulous counselor. Why am I getting these toxic people? Where's that coming from?
Right. Or like, what is attracting them to me? What am I giving off that's bringing these people in?
So then when I discovered the child trauma piece, it was so important for me to know and understand it. So then I knew what to watch for, what was good and what was not good when I went back out there to date. And it made all the difference in the world. And it does for my clients too. So we no longer settle. We have a lot of one and done dates because we can see it right away. So the best thing to do maybe is to start with what are the top 10 traumas so people can start recognizing them, not only in others, but in themselves. Because, we all think, oh, well, we didn't have a lot of traumas. We had a couple bumps in the road. My childhood was pretty normal until I read this. And then I could identify what my traumas were and why I was attracting those people that I did. And then I did the healing work around those. So that's the important part, recognizing what yours might be and then why they interplay to attract the people you have attracted. And when you do that over and over again, you're attracting toxic people into your life. We call that relationship repetition syndrome, RRS.
Yeah. And, and I think you make a good point, because I do believe that a lot of people don't know about the childhood trauma that they had. And, correct me if I'm wrong, but it could be as simple as a conversation or you getting reprimanded by an adult in your childhood that formulated some sort of trauma in you that at the time may not have resonated, but is coming out now later
Yes and no. I
Okay.
mean, yes, it is about things that happen in your childhood, and it goes into the unhealed unconscious and comes up as toxic or dysfunctional behaviors as an adult.
Mhm.
But it's more repetition over time that becomes normalized for the child and the adult. So the adult doesn't even recognize it as a problem.
Got it.
So yeah. Would you like me to go into the 10
Yeah, I was
traumas?
going to say, so let's dive in. I mean, let's dive into, if you will, describe what
Sure.
those top 10 traumas are that really impacts most adults later in life. That would be great.
And listeners, take notes on this, but if you're driving, I have a resource for you at the end of the show where you can get this test. But it's really important that you do it for you and your partner or past partner that you had a problem with, and even your parents, because the research shows childhood trauma goes through at least 3 generations. So if you had it, your parents had it, your grandparents had it. So, and again, this affects 90%. And there's kind of a standing joke. The other 10% are sociopaths and say, nothing's wrong with me. It's all you. So let's see where we fall in line. Like I said, the people usually can identify pretty easily 1 to 3 of these. So as I go through them, I want to make sure this is not about blaming your parents at this stage of life, and it's not feeling guilty or ashamed or like, oh my God, I can't believe I have 7 or 6. It doesn't matter, because you were just a product of your environment. You couldn't help how you were parented, and there's nothing you can really do as a child to leave that environment. So we're just trying to look at this as facts at this stage of our life. And then once we understand it, we can start changing it, because you can't change what you don't understand.
Right.
Okay. So here's the first one. Your caretakers or mom or dad, did they have any addiction? Now, I'm an addiction specialist, so I name addictions that maybe other people haven't thought of. But there's drugs and alcohol, sex, meaning you knew your parent was cheating, but you couldn't tell anyone, porn, gambling, hoarding, spending, eating, gaming, TV watching, workaholism, and now I've added social media addiction. You're on the computers all the time, ignoring your child. Okay, so that's addiction. Number 2 is verbal abuse. Now, you could have watched mom and they're fighting and yelling. They could have been yelling at you quite a bit in the household. It also includes verbal slights or put downs, like, change that outfit. You look fat in that, something like that. Or never hearing compliments like, way to go, kiddo, I'm proud of you. Or even hearing the words, I love you. So verbal is quite important as we go through the other outcomes. Number 3 is emotional abuse or neglect. Number 4 is physical abuse, rape, or molestation. And these could have happened inside or outside of the home. So you could have had a perfect home life, but you go for school and you got beat up every day going to school. That's an issue. Okay. The next one is a pretty important one too. That's based around abandonment. And I identify fault and no fault abandonment. So a no fault abandonment would be if a parent happened to die early, if they went off to war. And believe me working in the schools as a trauma counselor, my little elementary kids were just so blanked out. They couldn't study, they couldn't learn, because they're just so worried, is my mom and dad going to come home alive? So military kids have a lot of trauma ongoing in their mindset. It also could be a parent that travels a lot. And that's how they supported the family. And I could identify with that when I'm like, oh my gosh, I remember now asking my mom as a little kid, where's dad and when's he coming home? And my mom would never know. Much later in life, we found out my dad was CIA, FBI. You can't tell your family where you are and what you're doing. But as for a child, that was very unnerving, because I was very close to my dad. I was always wondering if he's okay. But that's how he supported the family. Okay, so that's a no fault. A fault abandonment would be never being in the child's life. Being in the child's life until the couple stays together. Once it breaks up, they're pretty much gone, and they're gone emotionally and physically. And the third one is that parent may be still in their house, but emotionally they're absent. So they're not spending time with the child. They don't go to the athletic games or art shows. They're just not stepping up. They're just not that involved or concerned with the kids. So that's an emotionally checking out. Okay, the next one is being part of adoption, being adopted, part of the foster care system, or needing to live in another person's home because your parents couldn't keep you at that house. They lost their house. They couldn't afford to have you with them. Okay. Trauma number 7 is one of the ones that people recognize the most. We call this personal trauma. That one I could identify. It's like, yes, I was skinny and gawky and I was teased in middle school horribly. Okay, so anywhere you felt different, you could have been an overweight and chubby child, called the nerd. Um, you could have had a medical issue like asthma, so you had to walk around with the inhaler and you couldn't go to the sports and sit out of gym. You could have been identifying as LGBTQ and you were afraid to say anything or people teased you because you were different. It could have been racial. You might have been an African American in a primarily all white school and they just didn't accept you, didn't feel the same. So there could be so many different things wrapped around trauma number 7. You just didn't feel good enough, fit in, or feel worthy for some reason. Trauma number 8 is sibling trauma. Most often, this one is when you identify your sibling as being the golden child. They were favored for some reason. They could have been more handsome or beautiful, the athletic star, the better student, or they could have bullied you. And another reason is they could have been born with a medical issue that commanded more of mom's and dad's time, and they were with them more than you and you felt slighted. Now, trauma number 9. This is one that everyone can relate to today. So this is one of your 10 and going on right now. It's called community trauma. And under community trauma is our reaction to COVID. Okay, this is impacting everyone around the world. Think about our little people that can't go to school, have to wear masks, can't play with friends, don't know if their mom and dad are going to get sick. Are they going to die? You know, all these frightening things, traumatic statements on the news that are impacting us every day. So whether an adult or a child, we are all going through this community trauma. Now, other community traumas are floods, fires, mudslides, our mass shootings, our school shootings, attack on our Capitol. I mean, us watching that in America was like, oh my God, are we serious right now? This is happening in our world, in our country. So anything impacting the community, and this is getting worse and worse and worse as time goes on. I'm a baby boomer. So when I was growing up, we barely had community trauma. It was in the later list because there are more than 10 traumas. But I had to bring it down to trauma number 9. Now, trauma, the other part of trauma number 9 is family trauma. So now let's think of all the families impacted by people being laid off, stores and businesses closing, no income, kids afraid if they're going to have food or the bill, you know, the lights are going off, or they don't have heat or air conditioning. All these are happening today, right? Other family traumas, living in a dangerous neighborhood, you're afraid of that. The military families move every 2 to 4 years. That puts the child in a new school every time. If you have an incarcerated parent. So there's a lot around the family trauma piece, monetary lack. And that one impacts a lot of people in business decisions if they've come from that statements of lack. And then trauma number 10 is any mental health issues in mom or dad. Now, baby boomers, we often did not see our parents going to counseling. It rarely existed. So we kind of have to guess. The 2 most difficult mental health is bipolar and borderline personality disorder. These are the toughest for children to negotiate. So borderline, I describe it as fast trigger anger. You never know what you're going to get. When they're bad, they're really horrid, but then they have really good moods too. So the moodiness is all over the place and it keeps a child in a very anxious state. Bipolar is the other one, which is manic depressive. Depression shows up as extreme exhaustion, checking out emotionally, or even anger when you're depressed. And a manic phase could be a gambling spree, eating binge, spending spree when you don't have money. And then that adds to all the anxiety around watching these manic behaviors. And even as a child, like, why is she buying that? We don't even have money to eat, So
Is
those are the top
alcohol
10.
is
What's that?
alcohol a part of that too, with the manic side of depression?
Well, any type of addiction, compulsion,
Okay.
acting out, but that usually would go under trauma number 1 if there's
One. Okay.
addiction in the house. Yeah.
Okay. That's
Yeah.
fascinating. I'm like, as you're going through, and I'm sure everybody listening too, I'm like, is that one me? Is that one me? Oh, that one's me. Okay, that
Yeah.
one's me.
That's right.
So talk to me a little bit about, like, people obviously were just going through the exercise that I just went through. So once we've identified which of the top 10 traumas we've experienced, then what?
Then what? Well, if they are my client, they're coming to me for a discovery session. I do that in 1 hour. I give them 4 assessments, 5 assessments actually. We go through all of them, and then I look at the severity levels. Well, do you remember getting punished with about twice, and that was pretty bad? What number would you give that 1 to 10? Well, they might say maybe a 4. And then there's other people that say, well, I come home every day to a beating, and that's a 10. So we have to do the severity levels of where they feel on that scale. And then once we got that, now we go into, if they signed up to coach with me, we start with healing the trauma first, creating that life dream that they have. Like, what do you want in your life? And let's get rid of the trauma that's holding you back, keeping you stuck in fear, negativity, self-doubt. Raise your self-esteem, raise your confidence, give you the mindset for success tools. And when we've got all that for my singles, when they're feeling really great about who they are, the life they want, they've cleaned up any financial, legal problems, they've got a good relationship with their kids aren't angry anymore. We work with all of that. Then they get the dating and love piece. What does the emotionally healthy, evolved, and conscious relationship look like? And part of it is really understanding the 10 traumas in themselves and in another. So just even on your first or second date, my clients have like 25 questions that you just casually ask. And they know, yes, this person is healed, or this person, goodbye,
Right.
good luck, and God bless. I'm moving on to the next one.
Yeah.
So you learn to identify early what's emotionally healthy and what's not, and why. The why is the most important part. But you should know how this plays out. Like, what are the characteristics that come up, right?
Yes. That was
If
my
you
next
had
question.
this, or you see this in your ex. So those of you that are divorced and moving on from that, look at this in your ex and see how many of these they had. Okay, so one is lying and manipulation. Where'd that come from? Let's take a little boy that had a very strict, angry, punishing father. And this kid was supposed to get all A's and B's, and he came home with a F on his report card. He tried to change it to an A because they had to have it signed. It's like, oh my God, that worked. So he learns to become an expert liar and manipulator, because otherwise, if he didn't, he would have gotten beat for childhood things that kids do, right? And these parents want their kids to be perfect. And if they don't, they get beat. So they learn lying as a survival tool. It's a coping mechanism. Okay, let's talk about jealousy and control. That one comes if you had trauma number 7 and trauma number 2, which were those verbal messages that were punishing or put downs, leaving you not feeling worthy enough, pretty enough, handsome enough, whatever. And you're jealous because you think that partner who's so great is going to go after someone else. Even though he's doing all the right things consciously, he's calling you and he's texting you and he says he loves you. All those things are great, but you still have this underlying fear that there's going to be somebody else. Okay, let's talk about men who cheat. Why do they cheat? They usually are looking for adoration. They could have had a bad relationship with their mom. Also, trauma number 7, trauma number 2, they didn't feel good enough. They might have been a chubby kid, so no like them. Now that they grew into the man and they're kind of handsome, they want women to adore them. Now, I see a lot of dynamic. I get a lot of women successful in business, but struggle in love. And this one happens a lot. They might go for that charming, handsome guy, but is not on her success level. And initially, these relationships, they're very attentive, they're loving, they'll do anything for you. And then 4 months to 9 months in, the research shows, as soon as things start getting serious, is going to start controlling you or asking you to make love. And it's like, well, I got an 8 o'clock meeting. I can't be late. Oh, come on, come on. And they try to convince you. And, so they're starting little by little to whittle away at your power and control that you have for yourself and in the workplace, just to step up. I mean, if you ladies have seen Dirty John, and if you haven't, you should see it on Netflix. It is the classic example of someone with childhood trauma who became a sociopath and what sociopaths do. And he actually became psychopathic in the end. And the differences are psychopath is a sociopath and narcissist who kills. A sociopath is someone who uses someone for pleasure or profit and lifestyle. So if you are earning more than that man, and initially they seem like the great partner, you better be careful if they're an underling. If they're not as successful as you, they could be sociopathic and wanting your life and trying to do everything to win your love and attention. But these are probably going to be toxic over time. So you have to be super careful on that. So that's where jealousy and control comes from, and sociopathy. People pleasing is something a lot of women do. Let's take a woman that had a difficult mom. Let's say she was an alcoholic. So she, as the older sister, used to get the siblings ready for school and out to the bus stop and do all the morning chores instead of the mom, because the mom was hungover and was grouchy and angry in the morning. So she overdid, and she learned if she did that, she received love back and compliments. Thanks, hun, for taking care of the kids or whatever. So she learned this as a coping mechanism. It became normalized. And then I see these couples later where the woman says, I don't get it. I do everything for him and my kids, and nobody shows me the kind of love and respect that I give to them. And their boundaries are so stretched, doing to get love back.
Right.
And again, this is all unconscious. It all comes from, these behaviors that became so normalized. Abandonment issues. If you have abandonment issues in your life, this is where we see love addiction, codependency, and the repetitive breakup cycle of toxic people. And the research shows if you're in a toxic relationship, and toxic attracts toxic, okay, that's how they get together, then they go back and forth, breaking up, making up over and over again 7 times until the healthier partner says, I can't stand this anymore. This is ridiculous. The person swears are going to change. They change. It's usually 10 days is the average. The things are good. And then it gets toxic again. And we call that the cycle of abuse or cycle of toxic relationships.
This is
Perfectionism,
fascinating, by the way. I mean,
yeah, isn't it?
Oh.
Perfectionism, wanting your partner to be perfect. These are the guys that want that perfect woman by their side. Even if they're not, they want that size 4 woman with the perfect skin and hair and dress. And why? Because they got no attention as kids. So they're using, again, that woman to be the it couple. And, God forbid you go up a dress size, they're all over you. Right. But the controlling and jealous man will change the way you dress, right? So none of them are good. Blaming behavior, they never take responsibility. It's always your fault. They're not willing to talk to you. Passive aggressive behavior, where does that come from? In other words, they shut down. They won't talk through an issue. They'll be mad at you and put you into the silent treatment for 2 days. That comes from they learned as a kid, if I speak up and say what's on my mind or my feelings about it, I'm going to get whacked across the face. So they totally shut down. That is their coping skill.
Right.
So these men have a hard time talking about their feelings. So there's so many, those are just a few.
I know. And I'm like, I could sit here and listen to you all day. This is so fascinating because
it is fascinating.
Because like what happens, right? If people don't, what I love about what you're sharing is that, I mean, I don't know about everybody listening, but to past relationships and even my ex-husband, I'm like, oh my God, this makes so much sense now. Or
doesn't it?
Or this person I broke up with that I was dating, thank God I broke up with him because, OMG, right?
Yes.
So how can somebody start stepping into the healing process of this, right? Because I imagine that if they don't do the work, right? I say this in divorce, if you don't do the work, you're going to just keep duplicating and
That's
going
right.
back
You're
to
going
the
to
same
keep
pattern.
duplicating these types of relationships. You're going to keep attracting the same type. And that's what everyone that comes to me, it's like, oh my God, I've had the same type of person over and over again. What's the matter with me? And like I said, I get their point of frustration. I was there in their shoes. So
Right.
it's a huge learning curve, right? And you're not just going to go out and pick up a self-help book and get this. No, this
No.
is all based on psychological research. So I describe it like a rainbow. You start at the place where you don't know what you don't know, and that's perfectly fine. We do the deep dive into the childhood trauma piece and recognize how your traumas are impacting you now, what you're attracting into your life, and why. Then we have to rewrite the story. We have to do some reparenting. We do capping, and then we do a lot of holistic things. I do vitamin therapy for my people, meditation. None of my people are on psychotropic drugs like anti-anxiety or anti-depression meds. No, my people are off of those once we get started. There's only a 33% success rate. The rest is placebo and the side effects are bad. So I do everything holistically. I even look at your diet, everything, right? Your space that you're living in, I check everything. So it's a learning curve. And as you do better and you're feeling better about your life, you're going up the rainbow, but then you're going to slip and then you'll go up, but then you slip. And people are like, well, what is the slippage? Why do I have to slip? And it's because the unconscious is so strong. Most people just act without thinking. That's the unconscious in control.
Yeah.
So what I'm teaching you with the mindset for success is to have total conscious awareness 24/7 before you speak, write anything, text anything. These thoughts go through your mind, and you've learned to slow down the anxious thoughts. Now, all my people with childhood trauma usually have ongoing anxiety. That's one of the ways you can identify yourself. Like if you're always feeling anxious all the time, that's a sign there's a lot of internal healing to do, because trauma stays stored in the brain and the body cells. And all my trauma education to become certified as the professional was saying that trauma recovery is about 6 months long.
Right.
So we have to do the practices of all these different techniques, and what person A gets is going to be different than person B and person C. And it's very individualized because nobody came from the same environment or the same story, right? So I have to work with you to put your individual puzzle together.
Right.
And the cool thing is with this workbook I put together, that's 150 pages, how you answer is how I then teach you to do the things that you need to do to change, heal, and grow and transform. So it's all back and forth, interactive like a team.
Yep.
Yeah. And that's why I love coaching versus counseling. Yeah, I've been a licensed mental health counselor for 21 years, but my people have text access to me. If they need me, boom, they can reach me because I understand the state of trauma that they need help. Right. So it's like a coach in your pocket for 6 months. It's a very different approach to healing, growth, and creating the life you desire. And that's what my people do. And then when they go out dating, they're ready. They're feeling amazing. They know that they're the whole package. They know all the dating do's and don'ts. Trust me, I arm them with all of that, the questions to ask, who's emotionally healthy and who's not, and why.
Yeah. And it's so important. I mean, everybody listening, you hear me say this all the time. You hear every guest that comes on my show say this. You've got to do the work, and you've got to do the work with somebody who knows what they're doing, right? You've got to do the work before you start moving forward with what your next life looks like. And oh my goodness, Riana, thank you so much for being here. I'd love for you to just leave our audience with one final tip that we maybe haven't gotten to yet to help them in this process.
Sure. For singles, I always say be who you want to attract. So before you go out there dating, if you know you have some things you have to work on, invest in yourself and do that first. Do not be dating, because you might meet a fantastic guy that says, whoa, I don't like her energy. She's too negative, right? So Be first who you want to attract for singles. So important. Get the skills that you really need, which is psychology, spirituality. There's a whole lot of edge that you need to compete in single world. So get that first. Couples, if you're in a relationship and you're not sure if you're going to stay or go, you sign up first. And I have a married man right now that says she doesn't want to do it. And I don't know if I want to stay in this marriage. We've been in counseling for a year together and it's getting worse. And I'm about to tell her to leave my house. And I said, then you do it. Not a problem. So I'll call him Bill. And on the third session, she says, oh, she's here. And she just wants you to know, thank you. You have been changing so much already. And by the fifth session, he goes, I feel better than I ever had in my life. She actually came on to me for the first time in 2 years with some intimacy and sexual advances. Why? Before he was pushing at her. He was lazy. He was watching too much TV. He wasn't working like he was. He wasn't shaving. He smelled. And he even admitted by the second session, he goes, oh my God, I'm the narcissist. I thought all the problems were her. And I said, good for you. Great for that insight. And he goes, oh, I'm this, I'm that. I said, no, don't put yourself down. Right. These are just outcomes from what you experience from a very critical, toxic mother. Right. So now let's just heal those things. Right. Yeah. So, you start if you're in a coupled relationship and if they don't want to, it doesn't matter. Now he's happier than ever. She's attracted. Their marriage is taking off. And she goes, I can't believe this is working. We've been in a year for therapy and this is your 5th session.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
And this is the power of what you do, right? This is the power, yeah. I believe the power in just coaching overall, right? Is, I'm a huge proponent of therapy. I think therapy is important for many reasons. And at the same time, there's other ways that you also get to heal that address other issues that therapy doesn't necessarily attend to.
Well, as I learned, we don't learn this in our college preparation for our licenses. We don't get it. No. So most therapists will not know how to go deep with this topic just because we didn't get it.
Exactly. Well, this was eye-opening and amazing. I don't know about everybody listening, but that was incredible. I have retained so much information and I'm going to go download that list myself and do some check marks. But let everybody know, please share with our audience today how it is that they can find you and what your free gift is, which will be in the show notes.
Yes. Okay. My name again is rianamilne.com is the website. So just my name, rianamilne.com. And while you're there, get the free ebook, How to Have the Love You Deserve. And it gives you the childhood trauma checklist. So if you didn't get to write it all down, go get that. It's right on the homepage. Then under books, you can have the first 60 free pages of Live and Love Beyond Your Dream, those for free. And I have the 4 free love tests. So do those because you're going to learn a ton, just like the childhood trauma checklist. You're going to learn a ton from all 4 of them. And if I can help you, I have a great introductory offer to meet with me for only $47. It's like dirt cheap. Was it a price of 2 cocktails in New York to get your analyzation, go deep for 1 hour with me. It's a $500 value and I'd be glad to help you out. And listen to the podcast, lessonsinlifeandlove.com is the website, or it's on my YouTube channel. I have over 106 shows on there now and tons of free education to help you out.
It's wonderful. Thank you so much for your generosity and
You're
for
welcome.
Sharing your wisdom with my listeners today. I am so grateful. And thank you for also doing the work that you do to heal so many people.
You're welcome, Wendy. Thank you. I just want to encourage them. Now is the time to create the life you desire and have the love you deserve. Don't wait. If we've learned anything from COVID, don't wait to invest in yourself. Do it now.
I agree. Life is now, everybody listening. I could not agree more. COVID has taught us that we all get to live. We get to invest in ourselves because life is short. You just don't know what's around the corner. So thank you again. And everybody listening, oh my goodness, so many incredible mic drop moments happened on this episode today. And I hope that you all are walking away with a very long list of incredible nuggets of information that will help you to navigate wherever it is that you guys are in your process. That is my goal with every single one of my episodes. So thank you so much for joining us today. I will see you guys in the next episode, sending you tons of love, light, and joy. Mwah. Bye, everybody.
Bye.